This is Gene Monteristil, welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 387, originally aired July 13th, 2014, re-edited and remastered for September 16th, 2019. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping and EFT so you get the most out of your tapping practice, eliminate self-sabotage, and take the action that you want. Today, and in the next episode, 388, we're going to be doing some really specific tapping and shifting to make sure that when you sit down to tap, you're going to get the most out of your tapping, because oftentimes people prepare themselves for tapping and start tapping in a way that prevents them from really getting the most they can out of their tapping practice. Before we jump into that this week, I just wanted to remind you that we have a free 10-part guide to help you to eliminate self-sabotage using tapping. There's audios, there's videos, there's instructions, there's tap-alongs, there's scripts. Every single day you will get a new part so that we're not overwhelming you. So every day you have a new tool, a new tactic, something you can try to add to your tapping to make it more effective. To get that 10-part guide, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on the big blue button. If you happen to be in the website right now, up in that right-hand corner, click on the button, and you will get that guide absolutely free of charge. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little time talking about and tapping on the 3 things that you can do before you start tapping in order to get the most out of your tapping practice. In episode 388, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to start once you have set the table. So before you sit down to tap the next time, I want you to do these 3 simple things. Today, I wanted to share with you a few tips that will make your tapping more effective and make the healing process happen faster. And it's not necessarily about things that we do while we're tapping, but things we do to set up the healing process. On Tuesday night, I was out with a friend and his coworkers, and inevitably you have the conversation about what do you do? And it's always fun, even in a city like New York, where there's lots of diversity of work and experience and worldview, that still tapping is at a place that most folks haven't heard about it. And they're even more confounded that I would be making a living doing this wacky tapping thing. And I was just cheering what I was doing. And one of the people in our group was really interested to the point that he insisted I teach him right there, which is an easy enough thing to do. Back of the napkin, some quick instructions, draw the tapping points. And when we were done, he's like, that's it? I can do this now? And yes, you can use tapping with that much information. And no, you don't have enough information to do it the most effective way. There is a real difference between the pragmatic steps of useful tapping and the art of delivery and how to use that in the most effective way. You know, I know how to use a knife, and a sushi chef knows how to use a knife. You know, I know the basics. I know where to hold it. I know which side cuts. I know the types of things I can cut up. But I'm not going to do it with the precision that a sushi chef does. Now, that doesn't mean the knife is unuseful to me. It just means that the person with more experience, who understands the knife and understands the things that they are cutting in a more effective way, are going to have progress in a more effective way. So today what I'd like to do is I would like to share 3 things for you to keep in mind when you sit down to tap, that if you keep these things in mind, it's going to allow you to move forward much quicker. And I have a little tapping exercise that goes along with each of them, so that if this is something that you would like to tap on to set yourself up for a good tapping session, then you can do that. Now, as a side note, I know that sounds a little bit odd. I'm going to tap to set up tapping. But what we're going to be doing is, as you see, is we're going to be clearing the deck, clearing preconceived notions, clearing any resistance we have to transformation. That's then going to put us in a position to allow the transformation to happen. Almost think about this like stretching before a workout. Stretching is a form of exercise, but it's a form of exercise that's setting up the physical body to step into what we're doing. So here are 3 little stretching exercises that we can do before we do the tapping. Now, the first one is be willing to let go of your story. There is something that is called narrative bias. And what narrative bias is our inclination, our biases, to want to create a story to the data that we have. It's the way that we survive. It's a very primitive instinct, and it's very useful. If I see leaves and branches that have been broken, and I see giant paw prints, I'm able to put together the story that earlier a large predator was here and I need to watch out. So I'm taking pieces of data from my environment and I'm creating a story. The problem is sometimes we create a story that isn't an accurate depiction of what has happened. I've had all sorts of misunderstandings in my life where someone hasn't called me or they showed up late or something like that. And I write the story that the person didn't show up because they didn't care about me, or the person didn't show up because something more important than me showed up. Now, they got a flat tire. And so I created a story from the data, but the story that I created from the data was not an accurate story. And we've been taught over and over and over again with our tapping that what we need to do is we need to find the original sensitizing event and we need to go back and we need to tap on it, which is good advice, except the times in which we create a story that isn't accurate. We have this problem in our life and we create this reasonable explanation that the reason why I have trouble speaking in front of people is when I was in 3rd grade, I was at show and tell and everybody laughed at me because I dropped my frog and it got away. Now, there is a very real possibility that that was the initial sensitizing event that makes it difficult for me to speak in front of people. But just because I have that memory and it's true, and just because I have trouble speaking, it doesn't mean that those 2 things are actually associated today. That it's possible that I could have cleared that, or it didn't actually create any lasting effect. But if that's the story that I am attached to, it's going to be difficult for me to heal because I'm going to keep going back to the same route over and over again. I love tapping because it allows us to do work on our own. And I have clients show up all the time saying, this is the issue and this is what happened when I was 14. And I think I've just tapped on that issue completely and I've done it over and over again. And the issue is still hanging around. Well, if that's the case, then more than likely the story that you are telling that explains why you are the way that you are probably isn't the whole story. And it might even be the wrong story. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to give ourselves permission to let go of the story that we have been telling that explains the way that we are. When I have a client show up to work with me, I always treat the way they describe their issue and how they ended up the way they did like eyewitness testimony. When a police officer takes an eyewitness testimony of what happened, and the eyewitness said, it was really crazy. This red Mustang from the early 60s came in and missed the red light and hit the other car and then went speeding off. So now we have someone who was there who has said the car was red, it was a Mustang, it was an early 60s Mustang. Now, the police are not going to limit their investigation to red early 60s Mustangs. But they're certainly going to investigate Mustangs, red cars, cars from the 60s in the area. So they're not taking it as an absolute fact, but they're taking it as a jumping off point. When a client shows up with a story saying, I am experiencing this because of that, I don't dismiss it. I don't say they're wrong, but I do go, that's a really interesting piece of data, and I need to investigate more. And so we need to give ourselves permission to let go of those stories that we tell. So if you're sitting down to tap and you want to make sure you get yourself clear of your own stories so that you look at things openly, the tapping might look something like this. And if you want to tap along, you certainly can. I'm just going to move from point to point. There's a part of me that believes that I understand the issue I'm experiencing is happening because of something very specific. And it's good that I'm trying to figure out the root cause. And it's good that I investigate the information that I have. But I give myself permission to be open to the fact that even though I think this is the reason why I am the way that I am, it does not in fact mean this is the way that I am. And I am open to letting go of the story. I'm not going to dismiss my story. I'm not going to say my story is wrong flat out. But I also know just because I think I am this way does not mean that is a fact. And so as I tap today, I am open to new information coming forward so that I can truly clear this issue and move forward. Take a nice big deep breath. And so something as simple as that is going to set the table to allow you to let your story go and move forward. Now, the second thing that I see a lot when people sit down or step into this that slows them down in the process is this necessity to know what the initial sensitizing event was, to know why we've ended up the way that we are. Now, this serves a useful purpose. If I am able to know what caused the issue I'm currently experiencing, then it's going to give me the ability to avoid that in the future. And so I have seen lots and lots of clients show up where they have stopped their healing process because there's a part of them that refuses to heal until it knows why. Because if we know why, we can prevent it. And if I heal it now, I'm setting myself up to have this happen again. Now, logically, it makes sense. Logically, it's important. If we can figure out root causes and make sure they don't happen again, of course we want to do that. The problem comes when there isn't a clear root cause. Sometimes there are very clear root causes. I'm 6 years old. I'm camping with my family. My brother throws a rubber snake in my sleeping bag. I am now scared of snakes. That's easy. A very initial sensitizing event. But there are lots of times where there aren't things like that. When we have something that is dispositional, like I'm not very excited about the way my body looks, oftentimes there's not an initial sensitizing event. There are very few of us who have that moment when we were 13 years old in a swimsuit where all of our friends pointed and laughed at us. Now that happens, but that's not always the case. The way that we become unhappy with the way our body looks is this persistent cultural idea of what beauty looks like. And if all of the images I see of the most beautiful people in the world look nothing like me, slowly over time, I start to look at me and go, I am substandard, I am inadequate. No, I can't find a root cause for that. It wasn't a billboard that I saw, or a magazine article that I read, or a particular movie where some handsome man walked onto the screen. And so because there isn't that initial sensitizing event, and it's something that is creeped in culturally, I'm never going to know why it is the way that it is. And as long as I hold on to the facts, and typically that happens on a subconscious level, as long as I hold on to the fact that I have to know before I can heal, I'm never going to heal. So to clear the deck and to set ourselves up to tap in a way where we're not dealing with this, the tapping looks something like this. And again, if you'd like to join in, just move from tap to point. Nice deep breath. There's a part of me that wants to know the root cause. There's a part of me that wants to know why. Because if I know why, I'm going to be in a position where I can prevent this from happening again. And that's a good motivation. It would be great to understand why. But if I wait to understand why, I may never heal this because there might not be one specific why. It could be something that slowly crept in over time, that slowly changed the way I saw myself and the world. I give myself permission to heal without knowing why. I am open to the possibility that I will know why as I do this process. And if I learn why this happened, I will utilize that information to make sure it doesn't happen again. But just because it happened before doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And just because I don't know why it happened doesn't mean it's going to happen again. My healing is much more important than understanding why. And when my healing happens and I move forward, then I will be healthier. I give myself permission not to know why in order to heal. Nice deep breath if you tapped with that. And if you do something like that, it's, again, going to set you up because we don't have to know why. We just need to be better. The third is disposition that's really important, is to recognize the fact that healing is a process. I really love stories of 1-minute miracles and 1-session miracles where something that it seems to have been here for a lifetime evaporates very, very quickly. But I think that those stories are outliers, and those stories are doing a disservice. Because if we expect everything to happen that quickly, then it's going to cause us problems for the long term. I can remember multiple times this happening where I would be working with a very skeptical client, and after 15 minutes, they've gone from being skeptical to being angry because one round of tapping didn't eliminate a lifelong trauma. So they went from not believing to believing it always worked in an instant. And it's important to remember that this is a process. And as things unfold as a process, we're working our way towards lasting healing. It's not about how quickly we heal. It's about how long-term the healing can be. How long will the healing stay with us so that as we move forward, we do it in a way that ensures our health and our well-being. And so there are going to be times in which the amount of healing that happens is only going to be a small percentage of what's there, but that's as far as we can go this time. And because we've gone as far as we can go, we've done the healing in a way that's healthy, and we've done the healing in a way that is lasting. And so when we open ourselves up to the fact that this is a process, and the fact that it is a process ensures the long-term health, then we're not going to be frustrated when it all doesn't go away after one tapping session. Because sometimes that's not going to happen. If it took a lifetime for you to build a belief that you are tapping on, it's unlikely that 10 minutes of tapping is going to undo that lifetime. Now, I'm open to the possibility of that happening, but that isn't necessarily how it's going to be. So to help set that up, it's very simple. Just tap on the top of your head and move from point to point again. Nice deep breath. I understand that this is not a healing moment, but that this is a healing process. And as this healing unfolds, I know that I'm doing it in such a way that I'm setting myself up for lasting results. It would be great if this happened in a minute. It would be great if I released this in a single session. But I am more concerned with how long the healing lasts and how deep the healing is than I am about how quickly it happens. If this takes 5 or 6 or 7 weeks, in the scope of my whole life, that is a small thing. And I am okay with that small thing. Because I want long-term health. I want long-term healing. This is a process. It's not a moment. And I give myself permission to be comfortable with the fact that it's a process. And I give myself permission to let it unfold in a way that will lead to long-term lasting health. Take a nice big deep breath. So you can see how those three things really connect to each other. You know, when we recognize the fact that we don't have to have the right answer when we begin, it's okay if we never know the answer, and we give ourselves the space to allow the healing to happen at the rate it needs to happen. If we do those three things, just like stretching before a workout, we're going to set up our tapping session to be super effective and super profound. So as you move forward, as you sit down to tap, take a few moments and just look at it in this way. Giving yourself this sort of space is going to set you up for long-term lasting results and healing that is deep and not quick. Quick is great. Lasting is better. Give this a try. I'd love to hear how this works for you. As you can see, that approach is really, really straightforward. You can see the concepts. You can take the scripts, print them out. If you go to tappingpodcast.com and click on the link for episode 387, you will find a link for a PDF where you can download those 3 scripts, or you can just have this audio at hand, or once you have those 3 concepts mastered, it's pretty easy to take a few moments, tap on those things before you jump in. If you don't want to go hunting for these sorts of things, if you download the free Tapping Q&A app, which you can find in both the Android and Apple app stores, you will have access to every single audio from our back catalog, as well as tapping scripts like this, that if you go into the text session, that's TEXT, and you just look for episode 387, you will see these scripts so that you can tap along to them. So whenever you're out in the world and you want to remind yourself of this script or any other script, it's there. It's absolutely free of charge. If you know someone in your life who is a tapper and would like to get more success out of their tapping practice, please be our ambassador. Pass this along. The marketing budget for the podcast is basically your word of mouth. And the way that people find new audio, the most common way people find new audio is from a recommendation from a friend. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to the podcast. And in podcasting parlance, subscribe means free. It's not like Netflix. It's not like some of the audio programs where you have to pay monthly.
You can get every single episode, including the entire back catalog, everywhere you get audio. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, TuneIn, Radio.com. Basically, if you listen to audio on your smartphone or online, you can find the podcast there. Go click follow, click subscribe, whatever the button is in the place that you consume audio so you don't miss anything. Again, it's absolutely free. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have something you'd like us to cover in the future, please reach out. Gene, Gene, at tappingqna.com. I love hearing from you. Some of the best episodes we did this summer came from recommendations and questions from listeners just like you. So please reach out. Let me know how I can be helpful. The Tapping Q&A podcast. This is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.